I'm Millie and welcome to the Sabre Collection. Today I'm going to be talking through the assistance dog gear that maybe you need for your assistance dog journey. Now, I've been part of the assistance dog community for a number of years now. I originally was owner training my own assistance dog before he failed out a couple of years ago, or as we say a lot of the time in the community, he washed out. Though this means that I have gathered a lot of gear over this time, so I want to help you figure out what gear that you need and what gear you perhaps don't really need. Now, let's start off with the number one piece of assistance dog gear that I would recommend for absolutely everyone. Whether you have an owner-trained assistance dog or a program-trained dog, the number one piece of assistance dog gear that I would recommend is one of these. This is a law card. A law card outlines the responsibilities of a service provider or business for you as an assistance dog handler and why they should be allowing you as an assistance dog handler to enter their business. Now, it is always important to remember that there are very, very, very particular cases where that may not be the case, but for the majority of your day-to-day cases, such as supermarkets and cafes, this is really something that will come in useful. This should really be your first response to an access issue. There's, in my opinion, no better way to go about it. It's quick, it's easy, there's not really much that you need to worry about, and if you get paper printed out ones, you can even give them to the service provider and they can keep them for themselves, though a lot of these more laminated ones can come in useful. This one is from Red Bear. It was originally printed for the organisation that I was under at the time. The organisation logo is on the back of this. So you won't be able to get probably an exact copy of this, but you should be able to get a similar one from there. But of course, there is a number of places that you can get one, or quite frankly, they're very easy to make your own as well. Just print one out. Oh, in this case, laminate one. You can also get plastic ones that may also be useful. What I also think is you get different varieties of these. Now, this one is one that anyone is able to buy, and I think is still available. This one's just saying that my assistance dog is out of gear, because of course in the UK, assistance dogs can work completely unlabelled. But that of course can cause more access issues. So this can just let businesses know that that is completely allowed, but your dog is in fact still an assistance dog. This one is one I picked up at the same time as that last card, just outlining that I don't have an assistance dog with me today, but I usually do, and that can help with if you need reasonable adjustments in other cases. If you want something a bit more in depth than a law card, then something like this can be very useful. This is a kind of amalgamation of assistance dog related things, sort of like an abridged version of the EHRC guidance, and has been printed out and laminated. This again is a booklet by Red Bear, but a lot of people will also print out copies of the EHRC guidance in the same fashion. And these can be very useful if you need just a bit more in-depth information that perhaps is going to be more specific to the issue that you are facing. Here is another law booklet. This one's from Waffable and it came with my vest. Here's another useful thing that you can get, primarily from train companies. These are free. You can print these out often or not. This one I requested from National Rail and they sent it to me in the post for free. Even though it has the Assistance Dogs UK logo on, it can actually be used by any assistance dog partnership. This is just to say that the scheme is supported by ADUK, not that the dog that is using it is ADUK. It can be really useful to politely ask people not to sit where your dog is settled and probably sleeping. A nifty little thing that you can pick up quite easily. Number two, of course, is the staple of all assistance dog gear, the vest. Now, in my opinion, this is the number one way to prevent access issues, as it clearly identifies your dog, and also means that a lot of people know more, oh, I shouldn't distract that dog, but of course some people still do. But this is definitely the way to go about it. It can also be a very good sign for your dog to be in the working mindset. Not all situations will require you to buy one of these vests. Now, if your dog is on a program, chances are it will come with a vest already. This will be the organisation's uniform, and usually it's not going to be something you're going to be able to alter. In some cases you may be able to make small alterations, but you would have to get permission from the organisation first. Now, if you are going down the owner-trained route, or also oftentimes early on, if you're having help from an organisation to train your dog, chances are you'll have to go and buy a vest yourself. Now, this vest doesn't actually say assistance dog anywhere on it. It says working dog on it, please ignore, and in training, please ignore me. Now, this vest is from, I believe, a business called Bella's Art. This business no longer exists. I got this in about 2021, but it has been incredibly useful and was the vest that I used for the majority of my dog's training. The other vest I used towards the end of this training, and this in fact might be one of the last things I ever bought, is this vest. This is a Waffable vest. It is a mesh one. This is very useful for the summer and hot environments where a normal vest may be just a bit too much for your dog, but it's not hot enough yet where you would definitely say, nope, that's not today. But it's just kind of erring on it. It's just really to make your dog a bit more comfortable. The other alternative choice that you can choose would be a bandana. A lot of dogs, particularly if they are gear shy, will also wear a bandana. I also find that they're very useful as a, oh god, I have forgot my vest today. Oh, but I have a bandana tucked away in my pockets of my coat, and that can be very useful just to slap on your dog when you're going into a shop, just to make your dog slightly more identifiable. Now, I personally prefer to get the cheap ones because I'm going to be honest, I tend to lose them. But you can also get these nice embroidered ones too. They are also very useful if your vest potentially doesn't have enough space for extra information. A bandana can have just that extra little bit of information. Also, a lot of organisations that may not allow alterations to their uniform, whether that's their fully trained uniform on a organisation owner trained route, or because their dog's program trained, will often allow you to get a bandana anyway. And that can be a really nice little bit of customization. Now, this next bit of assistance dog gear is one that probably the majority of assistance dog handlers have, whether they're program trained or owner trainers. And in fact, they can be something that you just accumulate in large numbers because they're not that expensive and they can look pretty cool. This, of course, is the lead slip. Now, I have 3 different lead slips here, and that is actually quite a low number for a lot of people. The first one is the Neon Dogs one, which is the same brand that I have my bandana in. These are brilliant, these are cheap, they are great to, again, throw in a pocket and forget about. I know I accidentally lost this for a while, but obviously because it's so cheap for me, I wasn't that concerned. They are also an accessible brand for people who may not be able to spend too much money on gear, because a lot of the time, like, vests can cost upwards of like 30-40 pounds, so can be quite pricey. But Neon Dogs is genuinely, it brings that lovely bit of kind of vibrancy to your gear, and this is very easy to just throw in the wash as well. Though, to be fair, a lot of the other stuff as well is just, I'm not afraid of ruining this in the wash. But yeah, I highly recommend these very cheap ones. That being said, I also have 2 that I got secondhand. A lot of assistance dog gear you can get secondhand. These 2 are Patience in Love, which is a US brand, I believe. Which brings me to the other usage case for lead slips. Now, this particular one, this lead wrap here, I use on the front of this vest. I just clipped it over the front of that, and it was a great way to kind of signify from the front that my dog was an assistance dog and that you should ignore him. And these can also go on handles and pull straps. A lot of people find that that can be a good place to put them too, and all sorts of places, because you can just clip them on. They are also great to leave on your lead, to be honest. They are, in my opinion, one of the things that you're the least likely to forget. Can you tell I have ADHD? Another 2 little accessories that I think are slightly less spoken about. One of them is patches. Now, if you have a Velcro vest, of course, you will have a lot of patches, but these are also useful if you have a Velcro collar. Some people have really nice embroidered assistance dog collars, but if you have one of those like Julius Canine Velcro collars, which is something I did have for a while, just slapping on a training patch can be really useful. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell you who made this. The person who sold me it secondhand also didn't know. But just Being able to slap this on my dog, brilliant. The other thing I want to talk about is patch tabs. Now, this has my old organisation's logo on the back. In my case, I found that these were very useful to put on my harness and my vest to show that I was part of an organisation without having to get my gear embroidered with the logo. This allowed me to buy gear that was pre-made and second-hand gear, as well as harnesses which can't be embroidered, and that was really useful. It's a really easy way to put logo onto gear if you're required to, or just if you want to. They are also really good to just put on various things. You can get ones that have the standard kind of patches of like do not distract and things like that, and that can be quite useful too. It can also be very useful if, like this vest, your vest has a zip on it. You can get something to attach the zip to make it just that easier to pull. Before I go on to the more specific pieces of gear, I do want to quickly talk about this. Now, this is a quilted settle mat. You can also get them in fleece, and to be honest, that is in some cases probably more practical and easier to stash in your backpack or your bag when you're going out. These are used for your dog to lay on. A lot of the time, if your dog is settling for long periods of time, people take harnesses off and sometimes vests, and being able to use an embroidered or otherwise labelled settle mat can be a really good way of showing that your dog is an assistance dog to the people around you, and mean that people are slightly less likely to interact with your dog. It can also be good if the floor is going to be quite uncomfortable for your dog. Maybe it's wet or it's otherwise just a bit grotty, and this can be a really good way to make your dog just that little bit more comfortable, particularly if they're going to be settling for those longer periods of time. Unfortunately, settle mats, as I was saying earlier, aren't always practical to store away, particularly if you're just doing something for a short period of time. A lot of people may opt not to have them or to just carry around a normal blanket, which is what a lot of people do too. As a side note, I wouldn't recommend them for people who have dogs that perhaps like to run away with things in their mouths, particularly if it's nice and fleece and they like to pick up those soft things in their mouths, particularly in adolescence, because it can actually be really hard to train your dog to not do that. By all means, if you're confident in redirecting that behaviour, go ahead. But I personally found out very quickly that it probably wasn't going to work for me, and instead of helping to settle my dog down, it was usually winding him up more. Which isn't a surprise, because the reason why he was because of his poor settling behaviour. Moving on now to the more specific gear, very specifically, harnesses. Now, I'm not talking about your normal dog harnesses, though in fact you can get vests to go over those, and you could also get some normal dog harnesses, such as the Ruffwear Webmaster, which with some patches can actually be used as an assistance dog vest. But no, I'm actually going to be talking now about mobility harnesses. Now, let me be clear, mobility tasks can be quite controversial at times, and in my opinion, you should always be doing them under the supervision of a qualified trainer and ensure that you have done the relevant vet and health checks that you need to do for your dog. And yes, this does also include harness-based guide work. Now, for example, my dog got his hips and elbows scored before we even considered doing that type of training. Now, you get harnesses from a wide variety of makers with a wide variety of materials, and not all of them are actually going to be suitable for mobility work. Some of them are just going to be an alternative to vests. Now, I would say that you should always ensure that a lot of the harnesses have gone through the correct checks and things, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to ensure that the harness that you use is going to be suitable for the tasks and to your dog. Most mobility harnesses are going to be made out of leather. Occasionally you'll find with some light mobility tasks they're going to be of biophane and occasionally webbing, but that truly would be for very, very light mobility. Personally, I don't even know if that would be safe. At the end of the day, there hasn't been a lot of research into harnesses, so it truly is always up to your discretion. I personally own 2 harnesses. This is one of the 2 harnesses that I own. This is a Boulder Leads Designs harness. I believe they're from the States. I got this secondhand from a partnership in the UK. This is leather and sheepskin. Personally, I wouldn't recommend this harness unless you have a very specific use case for it, because this is 3.5 kilograms in weight, and particularly with my Gearshy dog, he did not like this. And I learnt very quickly and realised very quickly that this just wasn't going to be suitable for us. Now, the other harness I own is a guiding harness. It was made by Three Shires Saddlery, and the handle was made by Yellow Seal Designs, though I believe they're going by a different name nowadays, and I don't know exactly what it is. It is a absolutely lovely harness, but unfortunately I only actually got it about a couple months before my dog washed. So unfortunately, we didn't use it for very long, and because of certain circumstances, I'm not happy to resell it. So I'm hoping eventually it will be used as an educational piece, but it is really quite a beautiful piece of leather work. Saddleries can be a really good place to get some of these dog harnesses too. For handles, you can get things like this as well. This is just a handle sign. This is from Golden Gears. Again, I'm not certain whether they're going by that name anymore, but it was by Golden Gears at the time, and it's an odd shape because of my handle is it was a B-type handle. It was based on the standard guide dog handles used in the UK, but of course my harness and handle are no longer in use. Just an additional thing, for harnesses like this that have these additional D-ring attachments, you can actually get something called a cape that attaches to the harness via these D-rings, which is like a mini vest that you can attach to your harness and could be a great way to show that your dog is an assistance dog. Now, let's talk PPE, or personal protective equipment. A lot of assistance dogs may need to use these at some point during their working life. The most common piece of PPE that is used is boots. Now, a lot of non-assistance dogs also use boots, but for assistance dogs, these can be very useful in hot environments, where perhaps you're trying to get to the car to an air-conditioned shop and it's a bit too hot underfoot, or icy environments, or slippery environments, or environments where there may be glass on the floor, or anything like that. These can be very useful. Also, some organisations that do escalator training may require you to get some boots. Usually I believe it's to put on the back paws of your dog when using escalators. These particular ones I got secondhand as well. These are Muttlucks. They actually no longer fit my dog. Other pieces of PPE equipment include doggy ear defenders, which can help in loud environments like concerts, and only if your dog is comfortable and trained for those environments, and also some lower levels of sound if it's going to be over a longer period of time, or also doggles that in some circumstances may be suitable for your dog to wear. But again, those would be very specific situations. There are also other pieces of PPE that you may need to use, but those will obviously be very specific to your circumstances. So just keep always in mind that perhaps if you're going to have to use PPE, chances are your dog's going to need to as well. Now, if you're looking for these types of gear, there's usually 3 places you can go: your own organisation, different businesses, which are often usually run by assistance dog handlers. You can find them by inquiring on Facebook groups often enough, or just having a look around social media yourself. Even though a lot of the large makers do have websites, a lot of the time they have kind of come from social media, so a lot of the time they're easier to find there. And finally, secondhand. Easily the majority of my gear is secondhand. There is a number of resale groups on Facebook primarily, and also you can find people selling on their Instagram stories a lot of the time. That can be a really great way to get cheaper gear that is usually in quite good nick as well. And please, if you're not an assistance dog handler and you're not disabled, please don't go out of your way to try and find these pieces of gear to try and fraudulently pass your dog over as an assistance dog. It's really harmful to disabled people who are reliant on these dogs, as it can cause harm and a lot of access issues, and sometimes even change in policies, which can be really hard, lengthy legal processes to be able to prove that they're unlawful and change. So please don't do it. Thank you. So that is it. That is all the basic assistance dog gear that you may need as an assistance dog handler. Now, it's very important to note that none of these are anything that you need to have. Your dog doesn't even need to be labelled in the UK, though that might not be the case abroad. So do always keep that in mind. Everything you've seen today is optional. You can also get some other things I haven't mentioned, embroidered leads and all sorts, to be honest. There is a lot of variation in assistance dog gear in general. Other things that are a bit less optional, of course: treats and treat pouches, collapsible water bowl, or those water bottles that have one of those containers built in. Really important to have with you if you're going on any sort of longer journey or it's a hot day. Standard dog stuff as well. Poke bags, Also, if you're going somewhere for an afternoon or evening and there is a potential that you're not going to be back in time for your dog's dinner time, a packet of their food, particularly useful if you're in perhaps emergency situation as well. If you have any recommendations for assistance dog gear makers or what assistance dog gear you like to use, leave it down in the comments below. And if you want me to cover a specific topic on assistance dogs, I am always happy to yap. So that's it. I will bid you adieu. Till next time, folks. Bye bye. Done. Done.